Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into a modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 10 of season 5, Vincent and the Doctor. Van Gogh, or Van Gogh. Either way you pronounce it, the Doctor and Amy have to help him fight off an invisible creature. This episode is written by Richard Curtis, directed by Johnny Campbell. It originally aired on the 5th of June 2010 and was watched by 6.76 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hello, this is Auburn.
This is Joch.
Hi, this is Brian.
This is Kelsey. I say Van Gogh. Get over it.
I do think we are all American, and the American way of saying it is Van Gogh. So
Yeah.
just know that that's how we're going to pronounce it.
In the
through this
American
episode.
dialect, Van Gogh.
We all grew up learning the proper pronunciation.
Yeah.
Van Gogh nuts, am I right?
Yeah, isn't Van Gogh a Klingon food?
Got it.
The Doctor and Amy visit the Musée d'Orsay, which is exhibiting works of art from Vincent Van Gogh. In the painting, The Church at Avers, the Doctor sees an alien in a window and questions the curator about when it was painted. He and Amy go back to that date and meet Vincent, who is unsuccessfully trying to trade a painting for a drink, because no one wants a terrible painting from a poor drunk. Amy buys a bottle of wine and asks Vincent to join them. When they hear a woman scream, everyone rushes to the sound and finds a dead girl who has been torn apart. Her mother arrives and quickly blames Vincent for bringing this madness upon them all. The people gathered around jeer and throw trash at him, so Vincent, the Doctor, and Amy run off. Vincent tells them that this is not the first death like this, and they all go to his home for the night.
I gotta say, I found it pretty funny. And, it makes sense someone's trying to sell, trade a painting for a drink, but it's a self-portrait. Here's this picture of me as payment. It's very egocentric. Oh, maybe I'll buy a picture. Well, what's it of? Something nice and pretty I could hang on the wall? Oh, it's me.
I think before we go any further, I just want to say Bill Nye.
I know.
know.
So is he some big Van Gogh fan? Like, why is he in this role?
My theory of this is that Richard Curtis wrote this episode, who wrote Love Actually, and recently Yesterday, and Bill Nighy was featured heavily in
Right.
Love Actually. So I
you
think he
go.
had a connection that way.
Sure.
It's a nice,
Oh,
he
yeah.
probably had a day of shooting.
And it was probably important to have a very good actor in that role.
It was actually a day of shooting, so he knocked it out.
And he needed to look good in a bow tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bow ties are cool.
Speaking of his character, Dr. Black, I like how this, I like that we enter with Dr. Black and not so much with the Doctor being like, here you go, Amy, look where I brought you to. And then we get to go with our heroes and see them, and Amy being like, oh, why'd you bring me here? You're being so nice.
Yeah, and in that exchange, Amy mentions Arcadia and the Trojan Gardens, and that's, again, adventures we don't see, so I enjoy that.
I love that, yeah.
So she never made it to Rio.
No.
Well, she's got nobody to party with now.
Oh. Well, and this part was really, at least for me, I was sad because she's like, the Doctor is doing all these things that Amy wants to do, and she says, you're being so nice to me, and not joking around, and the Doctor, takes it very personally because he is being nice to her because she just lost Rory and doesn't remember, and protested too much because Amy was just joking around about being nice to her.
Speaking of the museum, those two kids, I like their lines. It's the Doctor. He was the Doctor who took care of Van Gogh when he started to go mad. But then they're obviously ADR'd. It just sounded
Yeah.
so
that was so added.
added.
later.
Yeah. But I like that little throw. It's like, it's the Doctor. And then you're like, no, it's not the 11th Doctor. It's the Doctor's portrait that helped Van Gogh.
I really like the opening, how passionate it was when you first see just Van Gogh's eyes and how he's painting, and the feeling of the wheat and how that, the crows, and just all that energy there then goes right over to the painting and talking about it. I really loved that opening. And I've noticed when Rory, slipped on that one, when Amy and the Doctor are walking around, Dr. Black is talking about some of the paintings, and there's the picture of the vase with the sunflowers.
Oh,
the 12
I don't
sunflowers
remember
in the
that.
background.
Oh, okay.
And there are people on the front of it blocking the vase.
There's
So you just
one
see-
specific extra who I think was told,
Yes.
stand here
Stand
and
there."
don't move. Yeah,
Yes.
intentional blocking.
But now we know what to look for. You notice it. You know?
Well, we're at the museum. I was uncomfortable with how close people were getting to the paintings. And I don't know if that's just because Van Gogh is not as old as like Da Vinci, or is that just
The exhibition that we went to, you could get
you get right up
you
to
could
it?
get right up to it. And if it did have a velvet rope, you could get really, really close to it.
I think I just had some LACMA security guards scare me enough to
Yeah.
not get close to stuff. I mean, the way that it was shot, it felt like they were doing location shooting at the museum.
But it could have just been a museum.
I thought I
It could've
remember
been.
hearing on a behind the scenes or something that the Musée d'Orsay was hosting Van Gogh paintings at the time, and so they took advantage of that.
So where they shot the Musée d'Orsay, it was actually the Roald Dahl Place. So it doubled as the Paris location.
Are those real? Those probably aren't real Van Gogh paintings,
I
then,
would
are they?
not think so.
Okay.
Well, it had a face in it.
That's right.
Well,
Which when they went into the
Yeah.
the item in
window?
the window,
Yeah.
I was like, just me looking at it. I think after seeing it a couple times and knowing what the
The monster
the
looked
alien
like.
looks like, yeah. But on first viewing, I was like, I would not have said face to what was in the window.
Well, it's like, when you're in the shower and the tile looks like a face, and then
Yeah.
you've seen it every day, and then you feel like you're being washed.
That's a nitpicky thing, though. That's like,
I like the way the doctor invited himself into Van Gogh's home.
Yeah.
So do you guys have a place to stay? Well, thank you. That's so nice of you. Let's go.
Yeah, that was convenient. But I also love how excited Amy and Amy and the doctor are to see Vincent.
Yes.
So Vincent is in between the two of them, and whenever he turns his head, Amy,
Yes.
and then he turns to Amy's direction, and the doctor's like, I know. It's
I also-
very, very good doctor.
I also enjoy that they're using what looks like the brochure or the program you get at the museum as the reference. Like, this is where we can find things. I love
Oh,
that.
that's funny. Yeah.
But when Brian just said that, it reminded me of meeting the Queen with Rose in the 10th Doctor.
Tooth and claw.
In Tooth and Claw.
Or Donna
Yeah.
meeting Agatha Christie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like how excited
Yeah, it
she
is
was.
definitely actually the
So-
werewolf.
Or
It makes me think of the werewolf.
Rose.
It's a werewolf. I know. It's a
Yes,
real
yes.
werewolf.
I really like this episode, but it is some serious fan service at the cost of real storytelling. Like, every chance they get, they're either telling us the story of Van Gogh or loving him up so much, it's almost like they only wrote this episode so they could tell us how great he is. And I felt like it was just amped up to 11 too much. But it's a great episode regardless.
I like how the cold open is not really a cold open. It's more of a call to adventure. Like, it's Amy and the doctor going through the museum, and then they're like, okay, we need to solve this problem. I mean, I guess you could sort of think of the cold open as a Van Gogh painting in the wheat field, but that's like not even a minute.
yeah. It gets
Well,
right.
Remind me, where did the main titles come in?
Yeah, after he talks to Dr. Black, like, tell me when this was painted in
Yeah. As he rushes out, art can wait. This is life and death.
Right.
And then Vincent. Main title.
Well, I thought it was interesting how they dealt with Giselle's death, and that they really didn't show a lot. But they didn't, sometimes you would see just the person lying there. It's like, okay, but they wanted to make it gruesome without showing anything because they couldn't. So just showing the hand and just showing just a little bit. I thought it was effective.
It's like that scene in
you
Jaws.
don't want to look. The less they show, the more I did not want to see anything else.
What you just said reminds me of the scene in Jaws when they take the remains of the girl out of the drawer.
Right.
This is not a boating accident.
And wanting to know if she was from Holland because of her accent.
Right.
It's a little flashback there.
Yeah.
What is the actor who played Van Gogh's accent? He sounded.
He's a Scottish. That is
Scottish, yeah.
Tony Curran.
Did he have a Scottish accent in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
very subdued, but it's a Scottish accent.
It was like hers, which I guess was sort of funny that
Oh,
like
so
you
that's
sound
kind
like
of
me.
a
Are you
joke.
from Holland?
Yeah, that's how I took that, like an insider joke.
Oh, that's
Okay.
funny.
Yeah.
Because I never really, I didn't have any reaction to that line. I thought it was kind of.
And remember, this whole time they're speaking French.
I like that the actor who plays Vincent looks like I would imagine Vincent Van Gogh in real life to look. I haven't seen any pictures of him.
Are there any?
What do you mean?
Of Vincent or of Tony
No,
Curran?
of Tony Curran.
Oh.
like,
Oh, he looks.
He was
Like,
just in
exactly
the
the
Deadwood
same.
movie.
On this rewatch, I realized that he was on Defiance as Datek Tar. I just looked up the name, but do you remember watching that? He was one of the aliens that were all like super pale, like they were white painted.
On
Their
what
hair was
show?
white. The Defiance was like a western. You didn't like it. Never mind.
Okay.
But he plays some depth, like from what he was able to do with Vincent here to a very, very different character. It was just good to see and realize that he was playing a lot of different roles in his life. And it makes me wish that I had gone up to him at a Gallifrey 1
Well, now,
when we saw him.
now
He
we're-
had a long line.
Yeah, he did.
Well, now that we're talking about Tony Curran, I'll go through what he's done. He was the travel agent in Shallow Grave, which also featured Christopher Eccleston. He was in Gladiator, Pearl Harbor, Blade 2, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, X-Men First Class, and I like him a lot as Callum in Crazy Head, which I think is still available on Netflix. He plays the villain in that series. And most recently, he voiced Commander Throck in Voltron, Legendary Defender.
And I know him from Elementary, where he plays a college professor, and looks exactly the same.
Okay, so that's his look. Like,
And
he
when we
just
saw him at
happens to-
Gallifrey 1, he looked exactly the same.
Yeah. And then Thor the Dark World, uncredited.
Yeah.
He was Bor, B-O-R.
Also with Christopher Eccleston.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's Thor's grandfather.
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah, that's Odin's father. So in the prequel, when he says, "Put the ether under a rock because we can't do anything with it."
But casting someone because they look like who you need them to be is tricky. Because then, what if they can't act? But
Well,
I think this actor is brilliant, and it's more his acting that makes this a memorable episode for me, and less that he looks like Vincent Van Gogh. Like, he really delivers the depth of everything. Like, there's so much weight in this, and we'll get to all that, but there's so much weight in this episode, and he delivers it very well.
Oh, I think something like when that happens is basically when you're an actor, you have a list of people you look like, or someone like, and then casting directors have a list of people who look like so and so, So when biopics happen, they go to that category. I got 10 people who look like Vincent Van Gogh. I would, yeah. I don't know for a fact, but yeah.
Outside the house, an unseen creature is growling, but Amy and the doctor are too amazed by the freshly completed paintings hanging everywhere. The doctor brings up painting the church, but Vincent talks about the fixation of colors and how they affect him. Amy leaves to look at the paintings outside and is attacked by the invisible creature. When they run out to help, only Vincent can actually see it. Vincent grabs a pitchfork, but Amy and the doctor look at him like he's having a fit, swinging at nothing. The doctor tries to calm him down until he is knocked aside by the creature. Vincent stabs it, who screams and runs off. They go back inside where Vincent draws the creature that only he can see. It turns out to be the same one the doctor and Amy saw in the church painting. I'm shocked.
I like the line of Van Gogh when he's describing what he feels and sees. It says, "It seems to me there's so much more to the world than the average eye is allowed to see. I believe if you look hard, there are more wonders in this universe than you could have ever dreamt of." I don't know, I like the way that visual word picture describes his actual pictures that he's painted. And I thought that was a great way for him to kind of say, this is how I see colors and images.
Mm-hmm.
Just the passion he was having when he was describing what the colors do to it was just amazing. And then the doctor, we're going to get you some tea. Have some nice calming tea.
It's funny to see the doctor not be the craziest, not be the crazy man in the room with a speech that everyone else is just kind of like doesn't know how to react
Right.
to, and having the doctor play that other side.
This is a really hard relationship, I think, for the doctor to play, because we're used to the doctor solving really big problems or really life and death problems. But Vincent Van Gogh is a character who has really big problems, but those problems are not something that a Sonic can fix.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting the whole episode to see, because we all know how Vincent Van Gogh's story ends, and the doctor being powerless in a lot of situations to really give lasting help to him. Yeah, it's just it makes the episode better, I think, because the Doctor is not on sure footing.
Doesn't he say when he goes into his room later, when he's crying on his bed, like, "What can I do to help you?" Does he say something like that?
I think something like that. He wants to
Something.
help,
Yeah. He's like,
Yeah.
"What can I do to help?"
but he can't.
Right.
I have a note about that. We'll bring it at the end. So yeah, we mentioned that Van Gogh hears the colors. I like that. And then when Van Gogh draws the monster, they're all like, "No, no!" He's like, "Huh?"
Yeah. What
they
painting
all
was
did.
that? I didn't even notice.
I don't.
But it was the one he put
One
the
would
coffee.
never know.
Yeah.
So they didn't rework history to say this painting now doesn't exist that we all
Right.
know. It was some painting we
I
never
think they made up a painting.
It's similar to others of his, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that it was one that we never saw.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that are lost to time now.
But he did put the coffee pot down on one of them.
It's probably
Picked
that
it up
same
and-
one.
I want to know, was there, well, I can't remember if it was the same one, but I want to know is there one painting that has a
Well,
mark on it?
He did wipe it off pretty well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know.
I was actually curious, how much information do we know about Van Gogh in real life? Because did he write things down? Did they talk to his brother after his death? Because the script writer puts words in Vincent's mouth, which are great.
I think
Here and later in the episode, and it really kind of makes me go, do we know if Vincent actually, this is how he saw color, or did the writer make that up? Because if he did, it was brilliant.
Well, the way that the episode portrays him is that he just was a loudmouth, annoying, crazy guy in the tavern and all that stuff. So he's probably telling everyone he hears color. And 1890s, even though it was a long time ago, it wasn't so long ago that the rumor mill. I hear some rumors have lasted almost 2,000 years actually. In some circles, but also too, I do sort of remember his name being. I do sort of remember hearing his brother was a big resource.
Yeah, Theo.
Yeah.
Is this the painter that cut off his ear?
Yes.
And then did another self-portrait.
To lighten things up, I like when after the Doctor gets the new painting or drawing of the monster and he goes back, he goes, "I'll be back before you can say, where's he got to now?"
Right.
And then he just comes back and screams, and Amy, she goes, "Not that fast, but pretty fast." I don't know. It was a weird moment of levity that I wasn't expecting, but I didn't
Yeah.
find out of place.
It seems like they're just having a lot of fun with this Doctor. Now, he was fun from the get-go, but it was almost a little like ham-fisted. Now it's starting to feel more natural.
But also his delivery is very different than Tennant. I think those of us who were rejecting him was because that's not how Tennant would play it. It's a lot more subtle, and now I understand it. Now watching it again, going, "Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's fun." It's just a different cadence and total different delivery.
I think I hope he's even though obviously he's a very famous actor at this point, extremely famous for Doctor Who, he's underrated as a comedic actor. I think a lot of the stuff on these rewatches that I'm watching him do is just he's got so many little brilliant moments that are almost small unto himself, and really great stuff.
The Doctor takes the drawing back to the TARDIS and shows it to a weird contraption that can identify images using a mirror, but it doesn't recognize the creature. He takes it outside where the creature just happens to be and gets its image reflected in the mirror. It is a Crephaeus, part of a brutal race of beings that usually travels in packs, so it's rare that this one is alone. The Doctor returns to Vincent's house, where Amy has bought dozens of sunflowers to inspire the painter. Telling them what he has found out, the Doctor explains to Amy and Vincent that the Crephaeus as a race usually just keep killing because no one can see them. But now, since Vincent can see this one, they might be able to stop the killing. The Doctor convinces Vincent to paint the church, knowing that it will lure the creature.
I like the gag that the machine can't tell because it's impressionist painting.
Yeah.
Impressionist.
And he actually
impressionist
kind of
drawing.
insults it, where it was like, all right, Vincent, you're going to have to do better.
And then when he's registering his own face, he makes that
Yes.
stupid face.
Yeah.
And then it shows the first Doctor and the second Doctor.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
And I like how he says, it's working fine.
Yep.
I only saw the first Doctor.
Yeah, right before it cuts,
It
it cuts to
prints-
the second
yeah.
one.
And then when he exits the TARDIS with the machine, the Crephaeus is right there, but he believes that it has finally started working and identified it.
Yeah, it's picking up a
Right.
previous image.
Right. The like
And I
it's
think
finally.
it is.
it was, like,
I think it literally
processing.
is picking up a previous image, and then the Crephaeus does come around the corner.
Yes.
No,
well, no,
no.
I think the actual Crephaeus face is what it identifies.
Yeah.
But the doctor thinks that
It was still processing.
That it was still processing. So he sees the real face.
Yeah.
The doctor thinks, "Oh, you finally figured it out. Great." And then it does figure it out because it saw the
Okay.
real face.
Real one, yeah.
It was
That's
a
how I
little
took
wonky,
it.
but like the second time watching it, and Kelsey helped me to understand. What
It was one of those
happening.
quick line bits that they usually kind of
Yes,
breeze through.
Almern is bringing this point up, but only because he didn't get it.
Exactly. Well, that's why I'm bringing it up for our listeners to
Yeah.
understand.
And again, we get the budget-saving technique that Moffat tried to put in everything. He's like, make the monster invisible if you can do it. And here it,
It
he
worked
does it.
great.
Yeah.
I really like it here.
It's
And-
the anti-vampire.
Right. And originally I was wondering, like, it's very convenient that the monster only, like, he would have killed the doctor right then and there. Why didn't he kill him there? But he doesn't try to kill him here. He tries to kill him there. And then when you find out why, it all makes sense.
Something that Auburn said earlier about the Doctor in this episode not being on sure footing. The Doctor is always going to be one step behind Vincent because he can't see what Vincent is able to see. So it's like it's
Did the scene happen yet? Oh no, it happens later when in the church. Well,
Later.
with the screwdriver.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But he was trying to attack in other places.
Yeah, right before this, he was trying to help Vincent attack the Crephaeus, and
Yeah.
yes, he's
not
off doing
even
his
in the
own
right, he's
fencing
not even
thing.
looking
Yeah,
in the right direction.
yeah, you can see what Vincent is doing. You know that he.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting
was
that
funny.
the doctor is fighting. You can't see the creature. You can't see the creature. And then we get, when the doctor gets hit, we can see the creature's tail.
I
And
think
at first
that-
that really threw me off. And then I realized it's Vincent's POV.
Yeah.
So we're seeing Vincent seeing the creature.
It-
But it was still a little awkward.
It wasn't done very well.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah.
I did like all of the. I don't know if it was wire work, but all the people flying through the air as the creature hit them. That was fun.
It
this
does seem like
episode.
wire work.
Okay.
Well done. Wire
Yeah,
work,
no, it was really cool. And yeah, is it the original like Pete's dragon where the dragon
Yes.
was invincible and would like go up the stairs?
Invisible.
Invisible. Where the dragon was invisible and would like walk up the steps and stuff. I really enjoy that, like watching that on screen because it's the type of thing that is really cinema craft where.
Yeah.
You know, all this is going into putting stuff in front of the camera to make the viewer imagine what's actually happening. So that whole like the one long hallway or outdoor corridor where everything was falling over, like I just really appreciate that kind of stuff.
Oh
You,
my
s-
gosh, Elliot's or Crephaeus? A nice one.
you mentioning Pete's Dragon, it reminded me of my favorite one, practical like that, was the Three Amigos, where he shoots the invisible guy, and then you see the outline of the body in the sand. I was like, that's amazing.
I just want to say the production design and set design of this episode is amazing. Just when you see his house and the bar and the church and the wheat fields, it's just so... I mean, the crows flying out are obviously CG, but the design of the physical sets were just dead on. They're just... I mean, when you turn and you see his house, it's like, yep, that could only be his.
I think the Crephaeus looks like a giant chicken.
Yeah. At the end of this section that we just read, the doctor and Amy are alone in the house, and the doctor just pauses for a moment and says, "This is risky." And I like that he doesn't then brush it off, like, "Oh, that's great." But I do like that he's like, "We are about to do this thing with a famous person and could really change a lot of things if this doesn't go well." He's acknowledging that it's risky, and yet he's still going to do it, but he knows there could be consequences, and he doesn't blow them off.
At the end of the hallway, when he re-meets Amy, it's like another jump scare.
Yes.
Like
That's
Amy
another
is
funny
around
one.
the corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that this episode is, you know, giving us that tension, but also trying to give those valves to kind of release some of it because it is heavy material.
It's funny because that's what's kind of what is good about horror. It gives you the high tension moments or stress moments, and then it releases that with some levity. And usually it's like bad puns or just not good. But in here, it's welcomed, so it's not like an uncomfortable laughter. It's a genuine like, I'm glad that's there.
Yeah.
Vincent falls into a mad depression, fearing that once he paints the church, they will leave him like everyone else. He is so upset that he kicks him out of his house. Moments later, his mood has changed and he is ready to paint. As they walk to the church, he tells Amy that if she can continue after the sadness of her loss, he can go on as well. She is confused and says she is not sad. He asks, if she's not sad, why is she crying? Amy is surprised when she brushes a tear from her cheek. The doctor then purposely changes the conversation to the creature, and they pause as a funeral procession for the slain girl goes by.
This moment where the doctor wants to help Van Gogh is what you were mentioning earlier, Josh. Tony Curran plays it amazingly, where he's like, you'll just leave after I paint the church. It's like subtle acting, and I think that's why it works. Because you can see he's genuinely sad that these two people will not be in his life after he paints the church.
Yep.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is because then it changes where he's out of his mood of sadness and depression, and then he's like, let's go paint. And normally,
Very real.
yeah, but normally if this wasn't about depression, you'd be like, that was weird.
Yes.
But then it
Well,
works.
it's also because we know this about him.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying is like, normally if this was just another artist, it wouldn't. It'd be like, why is the kid writing this? The kid just feels like this is the mood I want to go, and then now I want to go into a happy mood. But it's just so much deeper than that, and I think it works.
I also like his line about sadness recognizes sadness.
Yeah, that's really nice right there. And then the tear that she doesn't know is there.
Yep. Yeah. And he sees it, which brought him out of his depression. So he sees it for a while.
Yeah.
And are we all on the same page about what the tear's about?
Rory.
Who?
The silence.
Which is part of that whole overall arc of her memories are what's important. Even if she doesn't know it, she's crying. So they're there. They're just not accessible.
It's the beginning of She Holds the Key.
Oh no, they've had things of her memory beforehand. The doctor telling her, "You need to remember this." Starship
that's
UK.
true.
It's like you gave up your memories. That's who you are. You can't give those up.
Oh, right.
So this part of things just going that whole memory thing. They're reminding us again how important the memories are, and if you forget them,
And to
the
me-
effects are still there, even if the memory is not.
You're right, but to me, this is the next step, which is she has literally been affected by the crack in the wall. Her memory has been wiped, but she still remembers, and nobody else has that. Nobody else has any conflict, or at least that we get told.
And she's supposed to remember because of being a time traveler. But
Yeah.
as the doctor said in the last
Yeah.
episode when Rory left, it's like, no, this affects your own personal life, not just a memory of what's going on in other places. So you're part of the change that's happening. On a lighter note, I liked when
The coffin was
Van
nice.
Gogh. I liked when Van Gogh is ready. He goes, "Okay, I'm ready. Let's go." And the way he put on his hat and has a long duster kind of coat, it looked like a gunslinger. His back lit and everything. So he's like ready to go paint and fight.
Yeah.
Do something noble. So I thought that was an interesting way of how he did it. Yes.
Yeah, because the way he picks up the paintbrush looks like a wand. Like he's ready to do battle. That's what that reminded me of, like Harry Potter.
Oh, I don't know. I was just remembering that the first time I watched this episode, I was thinking, oh, the Grafeus is why Vincent was crazy all these years, and so I was like, so if they get rid of the Grafeus, then he's not crazy anymore. But I mean, the episode clearly is like, no, he is struggling with depression and mental illness, and it's not just that he can see things that other people can't.
It's because he's like that he's able to see.
The Grafeus is a symptom of what he has because he sees things that aren't there that none of us can see. Because he can see the clouds spinning, he can see the stars bursting, he can see the wind.
And I sort of took that like when they meet Shakespeare, like this guy's a genius, the psychic paper doesn't work on him.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for that moment when the psychic paper would be brought up, but it never happened. I think I was waiting for it at the end. But I
You
think
just
if,
grab it and start painting them.
yeah, but I think if they had shown him psychic papers, like I'm a inspector, he would have been like, that's a blank piece of paper. But yet he can see like this alien. So it just goes to show you that he was a
Or
genius.
he would see everything that's ever been on that paper.
And it's screaming at him. So he's like, it's too loud.
Yes!
Shut that.
That's it.
As an artist, I really liked how they, even though they sort of, pardon the pun, painted it in a way of a bit of an insanity and anxiety, just the way that artists see the world differently and everything. And like most artists, especially painters, abstract painters, they do see in their mind those things, different things like that. Of course, he saw it a little too much, but just from my own experiences, I can't look at a person, place, or thing without seeing a series of shapes. Like, I'm not a painter, so I don't see things in that way, but looking at a person, yes, I'm looking at that person, but at the same time, simultaneously, I'm seeing all these shape relationships, spatial relationships happening. And at this point in my life, it's just like the Matrix. Like, I don't even see, a blonde, brunette, it's just, it all happens concurrently. And to hear a point of view like that put into a story like this is, it rang very true.
I thought it was a really great bit to bring back the funeral procession, because it was just a death at the beginning of the episode we had forgotten about. And to have that continuation, I thought was important and needed in here.
Plus, also he was fascinated by the sunflowers on top of the coffin, and so I think that's like Amy started it, where he was kind of like, okay, maybe I should take another look at
And
sunflowers.
halfway between life and death.
And now he's seeing sunflowers between life and death, and I think it's like, okay, Amy doesn't inspire him. Well, Amy does inspire him, but
He wouldn't have looked at him.
he wouldn't have. He
wouldn't
might
have-
not have seen that if
Yeah,
Amy
yeah.
hadn't have started his.
But Amy brought them in, and that's when he saw the complexities
The
and-
complexity,
of
yeah.
them.
And then
that
he
just-
saw it in real life.
And that accentuated how Amy's sitting there with the sun, and that's the life surrounded by those flowers. And then they're carried on a coffin. So what he had described to us, we get to see a little bit of that.
It's great.
Hours of painting later, Vincent sees the creature in the window.
But I love how the doctor, is this how time goes by?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole episode.
Because he seems like a child, just like, when are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Well, also, too, as an artist, you don't know how many times it's just like people don't realize how long it takes to sometimes draw something. Because I'll draw, because people think, I work in animation, I can draw very quickly, but I draw a sketch very quickly. I was working on an illustration not too long ago in my spare time. It took me like 4 months because I only had little time to do it here. Or, you do a sketch and then people are just sitting there like, now that this isn't fun anymore for me to watch you doing it, I'm not interested. Or like they say, oh, can you just draw something for me real quick? And that also rang very true. People not
Yes,
realizing.
yes.
Or how long? Someone asked me not too long ago, how long would it take you to animate like a short that was like, I don't know, 3 minutes long? And I was like, I don't know, better part of a year if it was just me. Like, but you draw so fast. I'm like, yeah, but that's just the drawing part, and then there's thousands of drawings.
Yeah.
So the doctor's line is this how time normally passes? Really slowly? In the right order?
Yeah.
I really
That's
love the
great.
button of the right order.
Yeah.
I like how he insults Michelangelo.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
says
what
he's
was
a-
it that he said?
He says he was a whinger, and I looked that up.
Yeah, I did
and
too.
he's a bellyacher. He's a complainer.
Yeah.
A
He,
whiner.
he kvetches.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're scared of heights, you shouldn't have taken the job. It just was funny.
The doctor pulls out the contraption and goes into the church. The creature attacks the doctor, and Amy and Vincent run in to help. The doctor and Amy hide in a confessional. Vincent fights it off with a chair, and they all escape to a large crypt. The creature breaks in and is feeling its way around the room. The doctor realizes that it is blind, and that must be why it was left behind by its pack. Vincent raises the legs of a tripod as the creature rushes forward and impales itself. The creature communicates it is afraid before it dies.
Twist the knife.
Before
Nice.
we go on, is that why it was left behind or not?
Yes.
Because I can't remember if
That's
we
why
just-
he's reasoning.
Did he say that, or is that
Yeah.
something I put in?
He suggests
Okay.
that like they left him behind because he's blind. He's the weak link.
Yeah.
And in a pack, you just
Oh,
drop
sure.
the
Yeah.
weak link.
Okay, we can go on now.
My second favorite part is when he sonics the creature and he says, "Did it do anything?"
I think he enjoyed it.
But yeah.
Yeah, no.
I think I'm going to use this Sonic just for screwdriving from now on.
He does it with such confidence. So anything? Nothing. I think he rather enjoyed it.
When he's painting, he says, I know evil when I see it. But then the creature dies, and I feel bad for the creature. It's like, it's not evil.
Yeah.
So that was a weird, almost like contrast? I don't know.
Well,
He was wrong.
yes, the
He's
creature is
crazy.
doing what the creature does, but they are killers.
But then when we learn he's doing it out of fear and not out
No,
of
he doesn't.
malice.
He's not doing it out of fear. I mean, maybe, but this is a race known for just killing indiscriminately.
I guess because I take it that it's because it's not a normal version of that species, that it's more out of fear. I don't know. It's just
Well,
I
it's
didn't
kinda-
take it that way.
Look, a man-eating lion isn't inherently like
Right,
maliciously
yes.
evil, but it's a killer.
Yeah, I just found that odd. That's all.
It is odd. It feels like, again, two people writing it because
Yeah.
the
that could
doctor's
be.
seeing it as being, this is a face of evil. I know evil. And he doesn't know that race.
Wait,
He doesn't know
so the
who the
doctor
race is.
said that?
At the beginning.
At the very beginning,
Well,
yeah.
it's also he's
Painting.
looking at an interpretation of an artist's rendition. So
True.
like, so an artist is going to look at this monster and
And-
make it look evil.
See, it almost feels like that line should have been the doctor looking at it through the mirror. I think that's what's bothering me about it.
But then we try and do the whole, Doctor Who thing where it's not evil, it's misunderstood.
Right.
And that's where it gets me going. The doctor says this is evil. He wants to fight it. They go, well, it's injured, it's blind. I mean, they don't even clarify, going, well, maybe that's the whole species is blind because
Yeah.
they're invisible.
No, because he knew what it was once he read what it was. That thing would have told him that this is a blind
Right,
race of
right.
such and suches.
But he did say that's why they don't eat. So usually, I guess they kill and eat whatever they're after.
But this one
why
never-
didn't it eat?
Yeah, this
Like,
one
you
never
would think
ate.
if you're still blind, you get hungry. you know? So I don't understand.
So he was lashing out because it was afraid.
And then I saw the connection between the villagers being afraid of Van Gogh's, I guess, madness, depression.
And throwing the things at
Yeah.
him, with thrash and rocks.
And I just found that, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I found it sad.
It is sad.
Yeah. And that's
you
why
have
it struck
you have
me
a
weird.
tear.
I know. What's that doing there? This
You
watery
remembering-
discharge.
you rem-
Oh, sorry, I spit. I got a little there going.
I need a sneeze guard here.
A little bit of levity as Vincent begins painting. He's using blue paint.
Yes. Okay, so this is where
I knew Eugene would appreciate me calling it out.
yeah, and I saw that his hands were already like
Yeah.
filled with paint. I was like, wow, that was quick. Because
Well,
when he's in the
he was
house,
putting it on pretty thick.
yeah, but it felt like he just started.
Yeah.
I didn't think his hands would be that dirty already.
That's from mixing the paint, probably.
But anyway, they didn't show that.
Or
is what I'm
the
saying.
Yeah.
second or third take
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
shot.
Well, they could have painted it flesh color and then I don't know. Whatever.
We had mentioned earlier that the doctor was really bored, and I feel like this doctor in particular has been playing that sort of emotion, like with a lot of the English villages that he's visited here.
Yeah.
Like because he's so manic most of the time, like every time that the story slows down for any reason, like the doctor has to call out that this is now boring to him. I don't mind it, especially here. Like I think it works well, but it is something like watching these kind of more regularly that I've noticed is a character trait of this particular doctor, and I don't know if it's a character trait or like a story trait that they have to.
Well,
use.
it's funny because it's counter to what the 10th Doctor was in that the ordinary human is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And now he's going, this is boring. This is dull.
When they're all running from the creature, the doctor says, Amy, Rory. It's like,
Yes.
It's like,
Who's
She
Rory?
goes, who? Amy. He doesn't even realize how much he loves Rory.
Right. And I guess, is it the TARDIS that's translating the creature for the doctor?
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Because no one else can get
Because he's
that.
also saying you're not
guess
used to
so.
somebody understanding you, and that to me is an indication that
Yeah.
something's at work and it's the TARDIS.
And then Amy gives him the whole, throwaway line that solves his problem of what's going on with the creature. And Amy, I can't see anything. And that's when the doctor, oh, it can't see anything either. So,
I also want to go back a little bit when the doctor tells his plan of what to do. That seems really dangerous. You're like, he's walking backwards and he's like looking at the
Oh,
mirror.
yeah,
It looks,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just-
get a better mirror.
yeah, get a bigger mirror.
Bigger. That's what I meant. It's like
Yeah.
Perseus had a big gigantic shield
Yeah.
to do this, and also it's like don't walk backwards. Angle the mirror so you can like still walk forward.
But again, the way he did it was comical.
comical. Yes, he's
Because
doing
he's like,
it comical.
Yeah.
Yes, but I love the way it's like I thought this
Yeah.
was the stupidest thing that I'd ever seen in my life, and now I can use it.
Yep.
So I do like how they kind of
Yeah.
winked.
So the lines are, no, I have a thing. It's like a plan, but with more greatness.
I also felt really bad for Vincent because I was just trying to stop this thing. I didn't want it to attack us.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to kill it.
Yeah.
And how remorseful he felt.
I wonder if that played into his eventual suicide at all.
And it kind of looked like the doctor was disappointed in Vincent a little bit for killing the creature. And I thought that was a little unfair because the doctor also was about to kill this creature 2 minutes ago. Or not, I guess not kill the creature. The doctor's plan was to take it somewhere else and whatever.
I didn't see it like that. I saw he was sad that what happened, not at Vincent. Maybe
He didn't give him a hard time
empathizing
about it.
with-
Speaking of that scene, when the creature is actually bleeding, and it's subtle. It's like, I kind of see it that it's cheaper on the CG budget, but it was really effective to me. Like, this thing is just dying. And it wasn't like bright red
I
or
saw it
bright
as
green.
the blood is still invisible, but the wetness on
Yes.
the concrete.
And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that's where I was leading
Yeah.
to.
It
I'm
was the
like,
shadow
that's
of
why.
blood.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. But I was like, that's really effective, and it's cheap on the budget.
the shadow of blood. I like that.
Yeah.
Just when he's trying to say something, I'm afraid. It just don't. Come on, no.
Don't tell us that. Keep it
just-
yourself.
Well, I thought it was a little cheesy until Vincent gave his explanation of how it related to him and his life and how they were basically behaving exactly the way that people behave towards him. I think this is a great show if a kid can handle it, to show young kids, to show the dichotomy of for empathy and understanding.
I laughed a little bit when we came in and somebody had quoted that line from the Crephaeus of it being afraid, just because it reminded me of Starship Troopers at the end.
Yeah, with
where
the
they
brain bug.
capture the
The brain bug.
Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris reads it. It says, "It's afraid." Like, yeah,
He comes in all super serious.
yeah.
It's afraid.
But another really cool effect that I like that is cheap, but also for an invisible creature, is right before the doctor has the Freudian slip with Rory and Amy, they're holding the door as the Crephaeus is pushing in. And if you look at it, you can see that Vincent actually has his fingers around the door because he's holding it back so they can push, because there's not a creature there.
That's funny.
And then it pans down to where there's now a CG foot.
Yeah.
He stomps on it and they all get to close the door. But yeah, that's just one of those like shots and things where you look at it and you think how much fun it is to pretend.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because the three actors are there pretending like this thing is coming in and they're like holding him off, and yeah. So that was a really cool shot. And then going right into the very deep slip up from the doctor. Yeah, it's just a great little moment that I enjoyed watching.
Yeah.
And is great because it's cheap filmmaking.
Yeah.
You don't need this. You had a CG foot instead of the whole CG creature.
But that CG foot could have easily been a prosthetic foot.
It could have been.
I had a friend who recently showed his kids, they're like young teens, like Die Hard, and the scene when Hans Gruber falls from the building. There's the famous shot where he's looking up towards camera, then it cuts wide and you see the guy fall, and his son's like, "Wait, is that CG?" And my friend was like, "No, they didn't even have computer animation back then." And he's like, "So that's a real guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, he jumped off a building and fell into a big, airbag that's off camera." And he's like, "That's awesome!" It like blew his mind that someone actually did that.
I mean, that's why practical stunts are good, because
Yeah.
they're in camera.
And he showed him Aliens too, and how
Oh, yeah.
think about it. There was no computer animation. All that stuff is very believable. Like
Yeah.
the big rig,
Power loader.
power loader thing that she was wearing and everything. And he's like, "So how'd they do that?" He's like, "It's just a big puppet, that she's, in."
Yeah.
And a little stop motion.
Well, in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a craft.
Right.
It wasn't just whatever. We'll animate it
yeah.
all later, which is also very powerful.
Right.
But when you're watching a movie, you don't want to necessarily be watching a cartoon.
Right.
And that is what is happening
Right.
in a lot of movies today.
And I've heard that argument about even
Yeah.
the Marvel movies, where I heard someone say, "I don't want to watch fake people fighting fake things."
But they do it pretty good.
They do pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
When it's done well. See?
Later, Vincent, the doctor, and Amy lay on the ground outside his home and look up at the starry, starry night. Vincent tries to get them to see the stars, wind, and clouds how he sees them. The next day, they say their goodbyes to Vincent, who says he was better with them around and fears it will get worse once they are gone. They decide to break the laws of time and take him to the present day. They return to the Musée d'Orsay exhibition and show him how many people love his art. The doctor asks the curator to tell them how the world views Van Gogh. He replies that Vincent is the finest, most popular, and beloved painter ever. He inspires so many because he was able to create such beauty from his pain. Vincent breaks down at hearing this, overwhelmed with emotions.
the practicality of, or the reason that the TARDIS is plastered with billings or posters. I like the payoff that paper's burning off when it materializes into modern day. And I like that's probably the only reason they put that there, but it's great. I love it.
Also, I read that one of the postings is an advertisement for the museum that first exhibited a Van Gogh painting.
But when you have that visual of France, you see the posters on all those
on everything.
octagons and everywhere. So I thought it worked really well.
Oh, it worked great.
Being on the TARDIS.
But I also do like how this happens a lot in movies where you hear a piece of music and then it's edited to be playing from a source like a car radio, an iPod. But in this one, it goes the opposite, where you see the guys come in with their radio and then that piece of music then becomes the soundtrack as opposed to the other way around.
Does anything talk about why they used that song?
I don't think so.
It was emotional.
There's a moment when they're looking up at the sky when the music, and this is a specific music which I believe is called something about Vincent in the sky, so it's a piece that was written for this, but sometimes it goes very, very Martha or Amy's theme, and it's really nice, but it kind of takes me out, and I don't want it to take me out because I love that moment. And I love the Doctor's reaction. I've been around for so long, I've seen so many things, but I don't see anything the way you do, and I wish I could. And the animation of actually, in the show, literally drawing Starry, Starry Night for the television viewer. That's not something Doctor Who does, and it's just so special.
I did think it is a very risky thing to bring him back to the museum because if we know he killed himself not long after that.
I thought they were going to drive him nuts.
Well, or would it be like inspires him to live and see that people actually do? Because if he may have killed himself because he thought no one loved him and no one loved his work, and what am I wasted my whole life.
Yeah, they were going for that.
But I took it as that the visit to the museum is what gave him his whatever time period they called it, like
push to be
that's why he produced so much work in that short period of time, and that's why. And then, but he still. That's the thing, is as great about depression and anxiety as a or bipolar or whatever it may be, as great as things may be, doesn't matter if your chemicals are all screwy.
That piece of music that Brian's talking about is entitled "With Love, Vincent," and I think it has that melancholy feeling that we're talking about. That's similar to Martha's theme.
More levity with the Doctor and Amy. The Doctor. So you think what I'm thinking? Yeah, I'm hungry. We should get something to eat before leaving. You're not thinking at all what I'm thinking. Vincent, get ready. We're going to take you somewhere.
I do like when they're taking him through the museum. He sees the Monets and he's fascinated by the Monets. It's like, good.
Yes.
I did wonder when the Doctor spoke about Michelangelo, he was kind of talking to Vincent, like he didn't question him about that at all, and he didn't know he was a time traveler at that point. But then I also wonder, did someone of his ilk know much about Michelangelo? Like, it's not like
he was from an upper middle class family, so
he wouldn't known.
It was a very moving moment. The whole episode. It was odd that the episode ended so soon, story-wise, for the main story.
Yeah, I noticed that this time around.
Well, that went by really quick. Is the hour over? Oh, it's not over. We're going to go a whole little extra couple scenes.
Well, this is one of the episodes where the plot is the B story.
If you think about it, the whole impetus of the plot is for him to realize the empathy for the people who hated him. Like, that's what everything's revolving around. It was almost like that was the idea, and everything was constructed around that.
And it reminds me of our discussion and our problems with Vampires of Venice, where one of the plots ends earlier than the other plot, where this one, one plot line wraps up, and we're still invested in whatever is going on. So I think it just goes to show you how it can work.
I also think the one that keeps going, we got to know this character more, and so we were invested in him. So his story wasn't over yet.
Yeah, we're in Vampires of Venice.
Yeah.
We weren't invested in those characters.
We knew that boat guy, and we liked him, but he,
no. And I just want to point out that the difference of why one works and why one doesn't work.
I think part of that is how much of a shift in emotions the last part of the episode takes us. We go from super high highs to really low lows, like that, and which I'm sure is also a reflection of kind of Vincent's life and his disease. But yeah, I mean, you go from wow, everything's gonna be great to everything was still the real world.
So the writer wanted to do Van Gogh, because Van Gogh was truly an artist that was not successful in his time. So then adding this scene was kind of like, yeah, this could happen if sci-fi was real. Like he really thought that he would not get any recognition from anything he did.
Because as much as I like this episode, and I mentioned earlier that it was a lot of fan service towards Van Gogh, I felt it was more so than Shakespeare. Than it was they were really laying it on more than they had in the past. They kind of played around with the fun idea of Shakespeare and the fun idea of who's someone else.
Charles Dickens.
Of Charles
Shakespeare.
Dickens and Shakespeare.
Agatha Christie.
Whereas this was adoration.
Yeah.
So the writer Richard Curtis had enjoyed shows that do historical episodes, and so he felt comfortable to write this one. And he had the idea centered on Van Gogh for some time in his mind, and was interested in the fact that Van Gogh never knew he would be famous, and as well as the inspirational story behind Van Gogh. And Curtis was also interested in depression and the price to pay for it. He wanted to convey that the doctor could rewrite time, but Van Gogh's demons were out of his reach.
I love that.
Like, this is something that the doctor cannot fix. It's bigger than a Sonic.
Yeah, this is...
Yeah, and that's why when Albert mentioned that, I was like, I'll bring that to full circle at the end.
Most life-changing art comes from great pain. There's plenty of great art out there that's great, but most that stand the test of time or change the world, or it usually comes from a lot of pain. Music, movies.
But that's why in this modern age with antidepressants, what are we giving up? I mean, if Van Gogh had antidepressants, he might not have had these paintings. So it's like...
Or would he have done more?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't
but
know.
He drew art out of his pain.
Right.
He made beauty out of his pain.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just...
Just a what if.
It's the what if.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they may be incredibly skilled, but it's the talent that they kind of use as a conduit to get the pain out.
Yeah.
Whereas
Exactly, yeah.
artists who may change the world, who were never depressed, were incredibly skilled. Like, it was just more even.
Yeah.
Because I know I was more productive as an artist when I had a lot of anxiety and I just needed to do something to turn off the noise in my head. Then, as I learned different life lessons and had certain epiphanies, the noise wasn't so loud and I kind of felt okay just doing whatever I was doing. I didn't feel compelled to draw so much because the noise wasn't so loud.
They take Vincent, who has a new passion to live and continue painting, back to his time. Amy and the doctor return to the gallery, excited to see all the new paintings Vincent has created, but they find none. Vincent Van Gogh still committed suicide at the age of 37. Amy says, "We didn't make a difference at all." The doctor replies with, "I wouldn't say that. The way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things, hey? The good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things and make them unimportant."
And they did add to his good. That I like. The next line.
Yeah, and they did add to his good. They look at the painting of the church, and there is no longer a creature in the window. Amy sees the painting of a vase with 12 sunflowers and finds the words, "For Amy," written next to his signature.
And we all dab the tears away from our eyes.
I really enjoyed this 1-2 punch because, again, like you're mentioning, Alburn, the highs and the lows. We go from an extreme high of showing Van Gogh that his genius is recognized, and then the excitement in Amy's eyes that we fixed something, we'll get more paintings. Like, what new art are we going to have to look forward to? And then finding out that, no, that's it. But then seeing the change of For Amy, it's just like this weird emotional punch, 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I see that as the metaphor for suffering depression. Amy's really, wow, look at this potential, look at this potential, look at this potential. And nothing came of it. And I just, I relate to that a lot.
Well, the thing about being depressed is, yeah, potential is later. Right now, I feel like crap, and that's what a lot of people who don't experience depression don't realize. You look at all these
It's
great.
like you're not sad, you just don't care.
Well, no, it's my point is there may be a lot of things to look forward to, but that doesn't make me feel better right now.
Exactly, yes. Yes. Yeah. And maybe not don't care, but you're just apathetic. You have no emotion to relate to. There's no emotion there to give you any drive.
And I thought that this scene with the doctor bringing Vincent back to the presence of the paintings, and with Dr. Black, he would use again the psychic paper, and I thought that that would be a great moment for us to know that the psychic paper doesn't work on Vincent. And then when Amy finds out that he still committed suicide at 37, it reminded me of Waters of Mars and Adelaide Brooke. Like, I was expecting the doctor to say that Van Gogh's death is a fixed point in time.
Never thought of it
But
before.
if he
It's an
knew that-
interesting thing.
If he knew that, he wouldn't have done what he did.
But then you could argue that now he's the time, like he's more arrogant. But it's a different
Yeah, you
doctor,
could
so I
have.
understand what you're
That's
saying.
whenever he says it's a fixed point in time, that's just that could destroy things.
I guess I'm also thinking of what Brian mentioned earlier about we're now in a point in history where this could be dangerous. When he mentions that about like him altering stuff, I don't know. I just thought of
You
a
mean
bunch of
when he
things.
says it's risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought of a bunch of things at that moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when Amy is walking back to the museum, she says time can be rewritten. That's what made me think of that.
Right.
Vincent's infatuation with Amy.
Yeah.
And it makes me glad that Rory was, as much as I love Rory, and I'm sad that he's gone right now.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that he wasn't in this episode, because it would have been the dynamic of Vincent falling for Amy wouldn't have been there. Well, I wonder what this episode would look like if Rory was still in the picture at this point.
One thing that would be consistent is Amy's not the marrying kind.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that line. I don't want to have a boyfriend. I don't want to be married. I don't want to have a fiance, but I do love this person.
Right.
So what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And I might be projecting a little bit onto the character, but we do that. So.
No, I think it's very valid. It's exactly what I think of her.
But speaking of character, it also shows what Vincent sees as like a relationship. He's like, we're gonna have kids. Like
Yeah.
modern day, are like maybe we don't need to have kids. And then later on, the doctor goes, "You and him would have made the ultimate ginge."
Yeah.
With the
She
red
I
hair.
don't
says-
get
she
the
says it
joke.
first.
Oh yeah.
She
He
goes,
says
our
the
children
ultimate
would have had.
Super red hair or something.
He says it first, ultimate ginger.
And she says the ultimate
Ultimate ginge.
chins. Or I don't get it though. I feel
Which
like
is
that
short
joke
for
went
ginger.
over my head.
she says if we did get married, our kids would have the reddest hair
Yes.
ever.
But is there a joke there that I'm missing?
I think it's a moment of levity to get us out of the.
Oh, okay.
Ginge
the heavy
doesn't
stuff.
mean anything more than it's short
Okay,
for
I guess that's
ginger.
what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
I'm like,
At least not
I
that I
don't
know.
play on words that I'm not.
I'm not aware of it.
I'm not aware of.
Well, speaking of levity, I like the running gag of like, you have a bow tie, I have a bow tie. That's a nice bow tie. That's a nice bow tie.
Bow ties are cool.
They really they more than glossed over it, the fact that he was obsessed with some woman and he cut off his ear and mailed it to her within the next few months. This guy, as great as he was a wackadoo.
Couldn't get over Amy.
Yeah, maybe.
But again, it's another episode that doesn't have the crack in the wall.
Yep.
It's their history bit. It's just they go and they visit an artist, and they just hit the jackpot with the actor, and the subject was great.
But I also see it as the way that Rory was killed, quote unquote, is that it was sort of, well, it was like a time thing. So then the fact that it still happened, but not in the way that we deal with death, that allowed Vincent's state, his like mental state, to kind of give Amy that sort of reflection, because when he says there's sadness in you and she doesn't know it's there. So I think that was needed also for the audience, because to go from losing Rory to this, I remember it feeling jarring. I'm like, why aren't we solving that problem? But then the ripples through time of Rory's erasure, if you will, this is how they're dealing with it. Because the doctor still is continuing his journey of like, let's go have fun, let's explore the universe. But then he has that slip of like, Amy, Rory. So it's like things are slowly being erased, but not completely. And then that's what Vincent is picking up on. So it's kind of like saying, we know what happened, but we're not going to go there yet. But we're telling you we know what's going on.
Little nods to the viewer.
Mhm.
We know what's going on.
We'll address it.
It'll
Calm
be
down.
okay.
Yeah, that's how I take it.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Tony Curran as Vincent Van Gogh, and then Bill Nighy as Dr. Black. He is uncredited, and we mentioned that he was in Love Actually. He plays Billy Mack, and then he plays Victor in Underworld, and Philip, the stepfather in Shaun of the Dead, and
Davy Jones.
yes, but another Edgar Wright movie, The Chief Inspector in Hot Fuzz in the very beginning.
That's right.
The network voice in The World's End.
That's right.
And then, like you mentioned, Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. Specifically, I think he first appeared in At World's End. And then he plays Minister Rufus Scrimgeour in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. And then Nick Howden plays Maurice. Chrissy Cotterill plays the mother. Sarah Consul plays the waitress. And then Morgan Overton and Brian Byrne play the two school children. So, Vincent and the Doctor, who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I think this one is so good that I'm going to give it to a new viewer. You could introduce somebody to this one just because it's so good. The performances, the writing. It's similar to Amy's Choice. It's a standalone, doesn't have the big bad. But Amy's Choice, I said casual viewer. This one I'm saying new viewer, just because this is so good. This is so good, and the plot doesn't matter. And it's one of those things where the plot should matter, but this one is so good it earns not to have the greatest plot ever.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone I think everyone would enjoy this episode. I agree with Brian that it's a standalone, and that there are some character stuff, like, you know, with the slip of saying Rory's name, and then Amy being sad because she's lost Rory but she doesn't remember Rory. I think because it's not focused on that, a new viewer could watch this and probably not even catch what's happening. Like, it would just go right over their head, and it wouldn't detract, is that the word?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't detract from the enjoyability of this episode. This episode is good for everyone.
I think the same thing. It's just for a new viewer, and anything I'm gonna say is just repeating what you guys said.
I think I will also agree. New Who viewer. And even if somebody wasn't really interested in Doctor Who but had a passion for art or for Vincent Van Gogh, I think it might even be good to show somebody who didn't have any intention of watching more Doctor Who, just because it's a fun way to live in the world. The alien monster plot isn't that big of a deal, but it's still fun. Yeah. So, New Who viewer.
I wouldn't show this as a first episode. To me, this is a sad episode. It is depressing. It's dealing with some serious things. But I would put it in the category that's good for everyone. I would want them to enjoy Doctor Who. If I'm going to introduce them to it, I want to show a little bit more, even if it's a fun scary, you know, like either Midnight or Blink or something that's a fun scary. This one's a bit serious, that it's good for everyone, but not for me, showing it to introduce somebody to the series.
So did you say casual?
No.
Or have you said yet?
New.
Oh.
I said for a new viewer.
Oh, you said new. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's because that category is also includes showing it as an introductory one, and it's like I wouldn't do that part of it. But the category is it's for a new viewer. Anybody who could see it and get something out of it. And like you had said, Kelsey, a lot of the little small things about Rory and the sadness would either go over their head or going, yeah, I'm missing something, because this is part of an ongoing series. I understand that part of it. So yeah, there's more to it, but I think they get the whole story.
Heather wasn't able to join us for the full recording of this episode, but she was able to share her thoughts on who she would recommend this episode for.
Okay. My thoughts on Vincent and the Doctor is this is one of my top, if not top 10, top 5 favorite episodes in the history of Doctor Who. And I would absolutely 1000% introduce someone to the show. And I think I may have already introduced someone to the show with this episode. I can't remember if I've done it or not. I know I've told someone. But I've told people who I didn't even really think would enjoy the show to just watch this one episode. Like, you don't even have to watch the show. I think you would like this one episode. Because I feel like it's about more, it has a lot to do with mental health and depression, and it's so well-rounded. And you don't even really have to be a sci-fi. You don't have to be a sci-fi fan. Essentially, there is a little time travel in it, but the overall theme of the episode is just more of a human issues. And it's really beautiful. It's got a fantastic soundtrack. The acting is incredible. I think Matt Smith is great in this episode, and the actor who plays Vincent Van Gogh should be cast in everything because he's great. and just happens to
Heather,
look
were you
exactly
at
like Vincent
Gallifrey
Van Gogh.
1? Oh, okay. He was there.
I was not.
I don't think any of us met him, though.
He had a really long line.
That speaks volumes in itself, though. He's in one single
Yeah.
episode of Doctor Who, and he had a really
went
long
down the
line at
hallway.
Gallifrey One. Like,
It went out. I mean, literally, he was
That
literally in the
episode-
dealer's room, but it was right by a door, and the line literally went out the door and down the hallway. Because the first time I saw him, it was like, oh, we can just walk up to. Oh no, we can't. So, and the guy seemed to be having a blast. He was getting up, taking photos, and all that kind of stuff. So I think he really did like the admiration.
because it's something to be proud of. He should be really proud of that. And yeah, so 100% new viewer for me. My favorite part is when he's running down the alley with the mirror device. And he can't see the monster, obviously, but he can see the reflection. I think that Matt Smith's acting is really, really fantastic in that part. It's really comedic, but it doesn't feel like Goofy or Scooby-Doo. It feels perfect to me. So we don't get another episode quite that good again. I don't know. I love the way it ends. I love that it has both the happiest and the saddest ending ever. I don't know. I can't say enough good things about this episode.
I really enjoyed this episode. I think Tony Curran does an awesome job. And like Heather mentioned, the fact that he had a line to go meet and greet with him for doing one episode of one show says a lot about the impact that he had. And the way that Vincent describes how he can see the colors reminded me of a TED Talk by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she described how the poet Ruth Stone mentioned how her poetry came to her. She said that she would be working in the fields and then she would hear a poem coming at her from the landscape. She said it was like a thunderous train of air barreling down on her, shaking the earth. She knew she had to run like hell to get home and get the poem down onto paper. She had to get a pencil and to be fast enough to write it down as it thundered through her. She would collect it and grab it onto the page. And it just reminded me of how the colors screamed at Vincent. If you couldn't tell, I would recommend this for a new Who viewer, and I would like to end with reading Van Gogh's line again. It seems to me there's so much more to the world than the average eye is allowed to see. I believe if you look hard, there are more wonders in this universe than you could ever have dreamt of. So that wraps up Vincent and the Doctor. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew podcast.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis,
Thanks to Russell.
Sydney Newman.
Verity Lambert.
Ron Grainer.
Delia Derbyshire.
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
And now a throwback to when we went to Rose City Comic Con. This is a recording from one of the Doctor Who fans out there and what they thought of Vincent and the Doctor.
Are there episodes that you've used to introduce people to Doctor Who?
I think, actually, now that I really think about it, I think my favorite episode is in the 11th Doctor, where they go back and see Van Gogh, and I cry every time he ends up in the museum.
Yes.
And so that's one that I like to be like, you have to see this one, because you will, like, feel the feels of Doctor Who, but it's also silly and kind of, goofy too.
I have three things to talk about.
I'll give you two. Just kidding.
First, Van Gogh.
Ah, very good.
Like a Klingon food truck.
That's what I like.